Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone to another episode of Finding Freedom Through Confidence. This is here. I want to let you know that MVP confidence is a currency. If this is your first time coming into contact with me and or my content, thank you so much for listening in. I am Tanique Easy, leadership development expert. I coach first time and mid-level managers to lead and communicate more effectively without burnout so they improve team engagement and retention. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that is a big challenge right now. It's been for a while, but we're going to be talking more about it today. And that is running hybrid teams without losing connection. Because here's the thing, hybrid leadership, it's really one of the biggest challenges right now. And why is that? Because of proximity bias. That is the unconscious tendency for us to favor the people we see physically every day. So let's get into the session for today. I'm coming in a little early today because I have an appointment in the segment that I usually do, something that I couldn't put off. But nevertheless, welcome. If you're joining us live here on LinkedIn or on YouTube, please go ahead and let us know where you're joining us from. And if you are watching the replay, type hashtag replay. And again, let us know where you're joining us from. Usually go back and we check and we speak to the comments that we see in the chat there. So let's talk about the silent killer, the silent culture killer that's happening right now, while we're talking about, running hybrid teams without losing the connection. And so, again, as I said, the quickest way for us to kill an hybrid team's culture is proximity bias. And I mean, we have all been there. We have all been logging onto the meetings because the thing is, workplace cultures are continually shifting. The workplace thing is continually shifting where more and more persons are working hybrid, more and more persons are working from home, remote, and all of that. And so we are all there logging on from home for a meeting. And there are sometimes you have persons who are in the conference room. You have people who are in office and they are there in the conference room and they may be laughing at a joke that you didn't hear because you just logged in and you're laughing at a joke that you didn't hear. They are passing around a document that you can't see. You're not there because you're not there physically in the space to see it. And you this may have happened to you. You're trying to speak, but you're on mute. It happens. Or worse yet, you try to say something and then, persons in the room are talking over you. And so if you are a manager and this is happening in your team, here's what I want us to understand today, that what happens is that it can feel like you're leading two separate class of employees, the in crowd and the outsiders, the persons who are logging on via Teams, Zoom, Google Meet, whatever it is that you use, and they're not getting it. They may feel like the outsider. And you have the persons who are in the office, they are the in crowd. And I promise you this. Here's what I promise you, that the outsiders often feel left out. Those logging on Zoom often feel left out. And they might not be telling you, but they might be actually secretly updating their resumes. And so today I'm going to share exactly how you can actually fix that. How can you fix this? Because we're going to be talking about strategies for building trust and inclusion across remote and in-person teams. And I'm going to show you how to do it using the MVP framework, specifically looking at performance and the communication within the MVP framework. And so if you're a first-time manager or you're an HR director and you're trying to solve the retention puzzle in a hybrid world, this is actually for you. So let's get more into what that looks like. So the story I'm going to share with you how this has impacted me and what I've learned from it. And was this was me a few years ago. What happened was I learned a lesson about hybrid leadership from my Toastmasters environment. I was the vice president education of my club, and the task fell on me to organize our club's speech contest. So year after year, every year in Toastmasters, we have what is called a speech contest. And as the vice president education, that is my duty, that is my job, that's my responsibility to organize the club speech contest. But the thing is that the speech contest wasn't in one room. It wasn't just in a particular room, right? It was not in a physical space, but it was actually in the virtual space. And I had to learn how to coordinate across the entire Caribbean, so to speak. So there were different persons in different time zones, persons in different cultures, persons in different islands. And I had persons also in my club who were in Canada. They lived in Canada, they were taking part. But here's what the challenge was. I had zero authority over the people who I was reaching out to, who I was asking to be a part of my team. So I had to get persons for judging the contest, persons for playing different roles in that contest. But I had no authority over these persons. I couldn't fire them if they ghosted me. You see what I mean? They were volunteering their time. And so when if things started to go left, it's not like I could walk to their desk and said, hey, you're slacking off. No, I could just walk up to their desk because this was a hybrid situation. This was a remote situation, right? And so what happened is that I had to learn to build trust through the screen, meeting persons, talking with them, building one-on-one relationships. And so I was terrified. I was literally terrified that I'd messed things up because this was my first time doing this. I had some idea, but not a lot of ideas to what to do. And so I had to call on more experienced persons to support me in that space. And so I kept thinking, what if this is a disaster? What if the technology fails? And a lot of what ifs kept going on in my mind. But I realized that if I treated some persons differently, if I treated them as an afterthought, the contest would have failed. And so I had to be intentional. I had to communicate. Some persons, they say over communicate. So you have to over communicate. I had to build relationships one-on-one, call persons, ask, how can I help? Where are you falling short? Where do you need other support? Because I was not able to do it all by myself. And where I couldn't do it, I found them support, or they vice versa found support for other persons. And so I had to make sure that my people here in Jamaica, the people I was dealing with in the Bahamas, the people I was dealing with in Curacao, in Turks and Caicos, the different islands, that they all felt like one team. And so what was the result of that? Because I embodied that, where everybody felt like a team, like they were together. Nobody felt left out. The experience, the contest was outstanding. That was the result. And as a result of that, persons started to ask me to help them to organize their contest, to take part in their contest, because I gathered a team. I asked persons to come together and I allowed them to feel like a team. And we shared in moments. And so that experience taught me the leadership lesson here, that leadership is not about the physical proximity. It's actually about the intentional connection that we make with each other. So we don't have to be in the same physical space to be connected. That's not for me to lead effectively. It's about those intentional connections that we make. And so what is the strategy? I'm going to share three strategies that you can use from my Toastmasters experience. And I'm going to share how they translate into as a first-time manager or mid-level manager or whatever level that you are in your managerial or leadership rank, wherever you are, that this can actually work in the corporate setting. How do you actually do this in the corporate setting? How do you stop your remote employees from feeling invisible? So this is for hybrid managers. How do you do this? So we have talked about my experience and Toastmasters. So these are some of the things that we do here in Toastmasters. And so I'm going to borrow three of the concepts that we use in Toastmasters that you can implement in your meeting starting today, as early as today. If you have a staff meeting later this afternoon, you can actually implement this right away. And so what is it? We have what we call the sergeant at arms. Those persons set the expectations. We have round table, or what we call table topics. So we have round robin, or what we call table topics, where we get to speak for no more than 2 minutes. So each person gets about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes to speak, to share, and they speak clearly. They communicate what they're saying clearly within that 2 minutes. And we use up the virtual applause. We celebrate people. Like everything that people do at the virtual platform or in person, whether we're hybrid or we're just virtual, we celebrate people. We virtual applause. And so let's talk about the first strategy, which is the sergeant at arms protocol, the setting expectation. So in Toastmasters, the sergeant at arms is the person who ensures the room is set up and the tech is working before the meeting starts. So they set the tone of the meeting. That's what the sergeant at arms does. And so here's what this translates to as it relates to the manager move now. So in meetings, as a manager, what we want to do, or the idea is to not to be asking persons, can everyone hear me? Can everyone hear me? And the meeting is starting 5, 10, 15 minutes late. The idea is to set up 10 minutes early, set the room, set the tone, and what the sergeant at arms does as well, as I said, as they prepare the room, they set the tone for that meeting. They play music, whatever music is because for each meeting we have a theme. And for the theme, they find appropriate music to go with the theme for that meeting. So when persons enter the virtual space, the hybrid space, whether we are both in person and on Zoom, when we enter into that space, we feel the connection already. And so that's the idea. Where can we adopt this is to set the expectation. And so adopt a remote first mindset. So even if 5 people are in the physical space and we have 2 that are logging on from wherever their remote location is, one of the idea is that everyone logs into the meeting platform on their laptops or on their phone. But more importantly, it's whatever devices they have, whether it is a laptop or it is an iPad, but have them log on to the meeting platform with their device, preferably their laptop with the other tabs closed out for minimal distraction. So we have them logging on right there. And what's the other thing is to test the tech before the meeting starts. have everyone on camera. That's one of the protocols that what we do in Toastmasters is to ask everyone to be on camera as much as possible because people feel more connected when they see a face, not just a picture. People feel more connected when they actually see a face. And so the inclusion rule here is if you're in the conference room, you do not look at each other. So we're not looking at each other when we're in the conference room. We are actually looking on the screen. So we have that screen in front of us and we're looking on the screen. And so that the persons who are remote, they're not looking at your ear, they're not looking at your cheek sideways. They're looking at your face, they're looking directly at your face. And so this actually levels the playing field and people feel more connected, people feel more seen when that happens. So that is one thing that we can try. So setting the foundation, setting the expectation, ensuring that tech is working and have backup devices. That's one of the things that we always challenge our persons to do as well, is to have backup devices, because if anything can go wrong, it definitely will go wrong. And so what is strategy number 2 that we want to adopt as well? And so this is called the round robin, or we call it the table topics. So this actually helps to fight proximity bias through speaking order. And so in our meetings, we often do the table topics where everyone gets a specific time to speak. So someone is not speaking more than someone else. Because we have those introverted team members who are shy and don't want to speak. This gets everybody an opportunity to share. So one person is not dominant, except for what we call the Toastmaster of the day, which will be your manager who is leading the meeting. And that person even gets their specific allotted time as well on the floor. So they're not always speaking, but they have their own allotted time on the floor to speak. And so how can this be adapted to your specific situation in corporate? Is that when you ask a question like, what do you think of this project plan? You ask somebody who is remote first. Ask somebody who is logging in from a remote location first. And so, because what it does, it brings them into the conversation early. And so if you ask someone in the room first, the conversation moves too fast. And by the time we turn to the screen, the decision may have already been made. And so persons remotely may not have had a chance to share. And so what this does when it fights the proximity bias, and what it does is also it builds trust by showing the remote team that your voice matters as well. Your voice matters. Even though you are not in proximity, even though you're not here, your voice matters. And even if it is a full virtual team, it's the same concept. Ask persons to be on camera. Give persons specific time to speak so that the dominant persons on the team are not the ones who are always speaking, but you get the voices of those who are typically introverted and speak less. They get their time as well. So it brings everybody into the room. So what is it that you say? Instead of you just say, you call on a particular person, you may say, Sarah, what's your take on this? And you get to bring her voice into the conversation from early. So that's strategy number 2. So we spoke about strategy number 1, which is the Sergeant at Arms protocol. Set the expectations. Start the room early. Set the meeting room early. Set the tone of the meeting. Include everyone. And we now spoke about strategy number 2, which is the round robin, where we get to communicate clearly. Here in Toastmasters, we call it the table topics segment. So we all get a specific time to speak. And the third and final strategy that can be implemented today as we finish this session, when you're having your meeting later today or tomorrow, whenever you're having it, you can implement this in your session. And so the third strategy is the virtual applause. Celebrate the wins. We hear about it all the time. Celebrate the wins. So in Toastmasters, we clap. We either clap physically and we encourage the persons online to clap. We ask them to use the emojicons, the clap emojicons. We ask them to use the confetti. We celebrate persons who come at the lectern. We call it the virtual lectern. We celebrate persons. We celebrate persons because in a hybrid world, silence is heavy. In a hybrid world, silence is heavy. So if a remote employee presents an idea and it is met with silence, they're going to feel like, oh, so I shouldn't have said anything. And they may feel rejected. It may feel rejected. And so how can we manage this? What's the idea behind this? How can we manage this? Is we don't just nod. We actually celebrate wins with explicitity. So we verbalize it. That's the first thing. We verbalize it. We don't just shake our heads, but we actually verbalize it. We say, great job, Sarah. Excellent. And we tell them why it is excellent, because people like to be appreciated. People like to be appreciated. It doesn't matter what workplace or team, people like to be appreciated. And it actually improves personal relationships. When people are celebrated, it actually improves personal relationship. And so feeling appreciated is actually a fundamental human need. We all want to be appreciated. And when we are not appreciated, we shrink back. We shrink back. But praise, when we give people, when we celebrate people for achieving stuff, for sharing great ideas, for doing things, it actually elicits what scientists call the dopamine response in our brain. And so it actually creates this feeling where I feel proud of myself, like I did that. And we get this pleasure, and every one of us, it doesn't matter who we are, when someone appreciates us, when someone appreciates what we do, we all get that rush. And so leaders can leverage this. Leaders can leverage this fact by ensuring that you build a positive culture. You build a culture of positive feedback. So verbalize it. So after you verbalize it, you want to use the chat waterfall. Let everyone in the space, because they're logged on, everyone use the chat feature. And they big up what we call, we say it in Jamaica, big up that person. But we use the chat feature to allow persons to express their appreciation for the other person as well. So we ask them to type it in the chat. Type it in the chat to say, great job, excellent job, well done. And that is appreciating, because they know that when it's their time, they are going to get the same level of appreciation. And so that now brings people closer together. That brings people closer together. What's the other idea? It's a culture shift. As managers, leaders, we can make this into a culture shift. Make celebration a regular team ritual. As I said, this is something that we practice in our Toastmasters journey, in our Toastmasters club and leadership. Whenever we have meetings, we celebrate team members regularly. And so This is the mindset shift. This is the MVP mindset shift right here. And it fits perfectly into the performance pillar, because here's what performance improves when people feel seen, and it performance improve when people feel visible. But if people feel invisible, they disengage. That's what happens when people feel invisible. They disengage. They turn off their cameras. They When they come to the meetings, they do not turn on their cameras, and they are doing whatever else in the background, but they are just there. But when people are celebrated, when people are praised, it becomes a part, and it becomes a part of the culture. So you make it meaningful. You make the celebration meaningful. And it is a challenge. I know it's going to be a challenge first, but it is a culture shift. It takes time. And so the culture is that oftentimes we notice what is wrong more than how we notice what is going right. And so it is vital, it is a vital skill that leaders catch people and acknowledge them when they are doing things right, celebrate them, because it boosts not just the satisfaction of that employee, but other employees within the context will say, this is what will happen for me just the same when I'm in that space, in that moment. It motivates the team members to repeat those good behaviors, and it builds emotional credit for when constructive feedback is needed. Because when we praise people, and then when it's time to get that constructive feedback, we don't feel like we are attacked. And so those are the three strategies that you can implement right away in your team culture, in your team meetings. So, how does this connect? How does this all connect to the MVP framework, the MVP leadership framework? How does this all come back to that? The leadership framework that really makes it work. Well, mindset. So you have to believe that your remote employees are working just as hard as the ones you can see physically in the physical space. And so we are challenging that belief that presence equal productivity. That's a challenge that we are that's a belief that we're going to challenge right now, is that presence doesn't necessarily equal productivity. And so the mindset shift is to believe that our remote employees are working just as hard as the ones that we can physically see. What does it look like for vision? Having a vision for your team that is united by purpose and not by location. So it's not just by location, it's one team, but many locations. So we unite with a purpose. We unite because we have one common purpose, one common goal. Not because we are in one particular place, but we have one common goal that we all want to achieve at the end. So it's not because we are in different locations, but we are united because we have that one common goal. And then the performance aspect is we need to hold is that we hold everyone to the same standards. We hold everyone to the same accountability, regardless of their time zones, regardless of where in the world they are. We hold them to the same standards. So whether the person is in the office or the person is working from home, wherever that location might be, we hold everyone accountable and to the same standards. That is performance. And we will again see an uptick in performance standards when we hold everyone across the board to the same accountability and standards. And so when when I organized that speech contest, that I had persons from across the Caribbean to to help with persons who I enrolled on my team to support with that contest. I didn't have authority. Remember, I didn't have authority. I couldn't fire those persons. But what I had connection. I built connection with those persons. I built trust with those persons. And this is what the idea is for leaders who are leading hybrid teams, that leadership is not about authority only, but it is about connection, building trust. And that is what people want. People want to feel seen, people want to feel heard. People want to know that they are connected. And so this is the lesson that I learned as I gather people from across the Caribbean to be on my team when I was enrolled to do that club contest, and other persons were able to reach out to me to say, can you now support me in that? Because now I've built a team of persons who can work together, who understand our each other's personality, and understand that even though we are far apart, we are not different. We may have a different culture from where we're at, but we are one team. We act as one team. So that was what happened. And so if you are a mid-level manager, if you are an HR director, if you are talent and acquisition development manager, or you are a learning and development manager, and you're noticing that your hybrid team feels like two separate teams, like they feel separated. And if persons may feel that I am not heard, especially that they are remote and the remote team is gone quieter than usual, and you feel like turnover is creeping in, or you see that turnover is creeping in, this is the framework that I just shared with you, that you might just need to bridge that gap. And we have it all wrapped up in the MVP leadership framework, as we showed you a little earlier. And so what I've done is I've gone ahead and I've opened up a few spots on my calendar for a 30-minute complimentary leadership call, where, again, HR director, learning and development director, talent and acquisition director, or our mid-level manager, I've opened up some space on my calendar. We can have a talk to look at what are your current team structure and identify, where the gaps are and where trust is not doing so well, where trust is bleeding out, and we're not seeing it, and how we can help that. So you can go ahead and DM me the word hybrid, and let's have that conversation. And again, thank you so much for spending your time to share today with me. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your time. And if this has helped you in any way, shape, or form, repost it, share it with another colleague, and leave your comments, because we come back and we talk with you in those comments. And the comments also helps us to create content that's relevant to you right now. And again, subscribe to our YouTube channel for these leadership conversations, what we do each week, where we talk about the different aspects of first time and mid-level leadership journey, how things affect those two sets of leaders. And so I encourage you, and to remember that MVP confidence is currency. So go out today, lead your team wherever they may be. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and bye for now.